You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the #1 in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Friday the 29th of June. British student violated in Egypt. Techie in India responsible for the meltdown at NatWest. Euro News with Nick Griffin from the belly of the beast. Tensions rise between Japan and South Korea. Syrian government forces amass on Turkish border. Thought for the day, does Islam want integration or domination? Finally, lost in space. UK News. A 21-year-old British student was sexually assaulted by Muslim men in Egypt's capital, Cairo. Natasha Smith, 21, who was doing a master's in journalism at Falmouth College, Cornwall, was in Tahrir Square in Cairo doing a report on women's rights for her university assignment. The mob was celebrating the presidential election win of the Muslim Brotherhood when Natasha Smith lost her friends in the crowd. A horde of Muslim men stripped her naked and the physical and sexual assaults on the student began. It was only when she found a fellow university student and hid inside a medical tent that her ordeal stopped. She escaped dressed in a burqa, holding another Egyptian's hand so that the mob outside would think they were married. The attack took place on Natasha during a rally against sexual abuse in the capital. The system meltdown at NatWest was apparently caused by a junior technician in India, it has been reported. The bank's British computer system is overseen in India, where the techie deleted vast swathes of information whilst performing a routine upgrade. NatWest is the consumer banking arm of the Royal Bank of Scotland, and despite many appearances from their chief executive, Stephen Hester, there has been no public explanation of this disaster. The real scandal is that our previously much admired British banks have summarily axed thousands of jobs in the UK and outsourced them in the name of efficiency and diversity to Bangalore and other parts of the Indian subcontinent. All our banks are still reducing in the UK and still outsourcing. Alex Brummer, the Daily Mail City reporter, has commented, "Major firms in strategically important areas must stop going for the cheapest options overseas and, where possible, bring jobs home to restore the nation's prosperity at a time of unprecedented hardship." This World at 8 presenter agrees totally, the clue being in restoring our nation's prosperity. Euro News. Now I give you Nick Griffin, MEP, from the belly of the beast.
Well, the belly of the Brussels beast was crawling with police this week. For some reason, the summit to end all euro crises, or more accurately, the 17th summit to end all euro crises, seemed to have needed much more security than previous ones. Perhaps it was the presence of the warmongering leftist liberal Hillary Clinton, or it could be because the intelligence services here have realised that it's now only a matter of time before angry Greeks, Spaniards and Italians start expressing their disgust at the theft of their sovereignty and being sacrificed to the banks by blowing things up. I'm not exaggerating. That's where things are headed, though there are two different routes. The first is that this summit, and the 20th, and the 21st, and so on, will fail to reach an agreement, in which case the domino collapse of bankrupt national governments and zombie banks will plunge the whole of Europe into a society-shattering slump for which the EU, pretty fairly, will get the blame. Enter Mario, stage left with a bomb. The second is that whereby the Germans bail everyone out and the European Central Bank turns on the printing presses, in exchange for a lurch to economic and fiscal union that will start by extinguishing the last vestiges of national sovereignty and then move swiftly on to impose brutal and thoroughly counterproductive austerity on the whole of southern Europe. Enter Stavros, stage right, with a bomb. Maybe I'm missing something, but I just cannot see a comfortable, peaceful way the Europhiles can get out of the fine mess they got themselves into. That's the trouble with utopian projects. Sooner or later they come up against cold, hard reality, and things get broken. The remarkable and most dangerous thing of all about the times in which you and I live is that the people running the show have been trying to impose several different utopias on us at the same time. So we've got the federal European utopia wrecking our finances, the one world government through climate change, carbon hysteria utopia wrecking our real economy, and the multicult utopia wrecking our social cohesion, all at the same time. Often, of course, the same fools, knaves and criminals are involved in more than one of these looming man-made disasters. A classic example of this emerged this week. An agreement was signed between Turkey and the EU just yesterday. Under this behind-the-scenes deal, Turkey agreed to make an effort to get a grip on illegal immigration through its porous southern and eastern borders by 2014 or 2015, and the EU in turn agreed to work towards implementing what is commonly called visa reform by the same date. Let me translate that from Eurospeak to honest English. The plan is to abolish the need for visas and allow 80 million Turks unrestricted access into Europe within about 30 months. On top of that, now that France is run by Islamophile socialists, negotiations for Turkey's full entry into the European Union itself will begin again in earnest in January next year. The one thing holding it back at present is that Cyprus holds the EU chairmanship for the next 6 months. But as soon as Ireland takes bargain's turn, the drive to allow one of the biggest Muslim states in the world into the heart of Christendom will step up again. This is the sort of whistleblowing that our voters had in mind when they sent the British National Party to Brussels, because you can bet your life that neither Labour, the Lib Dems nor the Tories, all of whom support Turkish entry into the EU, would tell us about this latest piece of nation-wrecking, job-stealing treachery. And because the Eurosceptic media have slashed their Brussels offices, the odds are that they'll have missed it as well. But now I've put it firmly into the British public domain, watch the Daily Mail or Express or Telegraph, running it as an exclusive in a couple of weeks. This is an example of why it's important for us to build an effective alliance between the principal nationalists of Europe, because the fight to keep Turkey from entering the EU and Islamifying it in one foul swoop is an issue that has to cross every border. So I'm pleased to tell you that I'm off to Warsaw today to meet with Polish nationalists and to open an office of the Alliance of European National Movements in the capital there. The Polish movement has been badly divided in recent years, and my fellow Alliance MEP Jobbik Spelakovac has done some great work brokering deals to bring people together. As we saw in Blackpool the other week, we nationalists are always more effective when we sincere people work together. So I hope that my visit to Poland will help to further cement the unity of an effective party over there. Of course, I'll let you know how it goes. I'll close with one other bit of good news, still on the subject of nationalist unity, but this time very much on the home front. I'm delighted to be able to tell you that the Reverend Robert West will this Sunday be delivering his first Sunday sermon here on Radio Britain. Although it is of course independent and non-party political, the Christian Council of Britain was first set up with the support of the British National Party, so it's great to have the ever-popular Rev Rob back to give us his well-thought-out and expertly delivered words of truth and hope. I hope you'll tune in to hear him this Sunday and regularly after that, and that you'll recommend this steadily expanding voice of ours to friends and family, because that way everyone can easily do something to do their bit to spread our influence. I'll leave you with a wonderful saying by Michelangelo, which I came across the other week. God gave a sister to memory, and her name is Hope.
World news. There is tension between Japan and South Korea after they both put a hold on intelligence sharing pact less than an hour before it was formally signed Friday due to a political outcry in Seoul. This military pact is the first between South Korea and Japan since World War II and was seen as a breakthrough between two neighbours with a difficult history. The agreement caused an uproar in South Korea, which was ruled by Japan as a colony for several decades until the end of World War II in 1945. Japan's cabinet approved the pact Friday after South Korea's approval earlier in the week. But South Korea refused to sign, saying it would hold off the formal signing ceremony because of concerns amongst South Koreans. This pact would provide a framework for the sharing intelligence in such areas as missile defence, North Korea's nuclear programme and Chinese military operations. Turkey has warned the Syrians of a possible retaliation over the shooting down of one of its military aircraft last week. The border between Turkey and Syria is a hotspot at the moment, and a general in the rebel-free Syria army said on Friday that Syrian government forces had amassed around 170 tanks north of the city Aleppo near the Turkish border, but there was no independent confirmation of the report. The Syrians claimed that the plane shot down was a spy plane. Activities along the border are being watched carefully by the Turkish armed forces. Thought for the day. Well, you will have listened with interest to Nick Griffin's input and the news about Turkey. Well, the thought of 80 million Turks circulating and breeding throughout Europe is not a pleasant thought, especially done so under the guise of stealth. But that is what we Europeans and especially we British are up against. A government that doesn't really care and some of our people that care too much to be kept quiet. It really doesn't fit with the now Western European image of acceptance and domination. Because dominated is what we will be on our little island, my friends. I am not a scaremonger, but the actual number of those of the Islamic faith in this country given out is not a true one. It cannot be, because they are arriving in their hundreds every day from lorries, boats, planes and cars. And I'm not including the ones who come through the airports with their passports and visas, being married off, joining a family member or working in a family business, supposedly. It also doesn't allow for those who are persecuted and seeking asylum, or in other words, an easier lifestyle. Now for integration, that great British word which has not yet reached the ears of the followers of the true faith. I have been sent pictures of a mosque in Sheffield and I am truly appalled. It is not only a blot on the landscape and can probably be seen from the moon, but it has two huge towers dominating the skyline, rather like two fingers to the UK actually, with a large dome in between. To say it is phallic will be doing it a justice. Our reporter was openly discouraged when he was taking his pictures, which is what they do in another culture's country. Now, if only 1.65 million of them are over here, and only 2.6% of our population is Muslim, as the official figures show, why has this monstrosity been built to accommodate such a supposedly small section of our society? Answer: because these figures are wrong, and on top of that take their reproduction rate into account and the ongoing input of these parasites. With the advent of Turkey almost in the EU, you can easily double that number without even trying. I googled population numbers for Muslims in the UK and guess what I got? A huge website for the Muslim community in the UK run by the Cabinet Office for Civil Society and under the Institute of Fundraisers, starting with a picky of black hands behind bars and an invitation to the Egyptian ladies' dinner party. After what happened in Tahrir Square to one of our girls being groped and penetrated manually by a horde of Muslim natives, I think I'd rather give that one a miss. But if our own government is presenting this sort of crap on the web, what chance do we ordinary people have of living out our lives in our own culture? Muslims as a whole do not want to integrate. They do not know the meaning of that word, living in harmony and integration. They want to colonise, not integrate. They want to, unlike the Jews, convert the unbeliever or kill him, whichever is easier. And they also want to do it in a country that is virgin territory for them, hence the move into Europe and Britain. They know our successive governments are weak and cowardly and afraid to act for their own people, especially since the end of the last war, as they must be seen to be anti-nationalist and pro-diversity and enrichment. Thence this disgusting website and even more disgusting mosques being built on every spare bit of land in all our towns and cities. Why, oh why are we allowing them to be built? This isn't Jerusalem, Mecca, Medina, the Yemen or Saudi or even parts of Africa. This is England, Scotland, Ireland, part of, and Wales. Our small island is bordered by the Atlantic Sea, the English Channel and the North Sea. Hardly a stone's throw from Muslim lands, is it? But the odd thing is that when we nationalists protest at the latest encroachment on our land in the form of these huge mosques and Islamic centres, the worst ignorance is from that of our own people. They wander around, badly informed and at best not giving a damn. Some seem to feel that if they have mixed race relatives that this prevents them in some form from being a nationalist and wanting to redeem their own country. Others are products of state education or rather state misinformation and simply do not know what is happening under their noses. Others simply think the whole idea of another Muslim colony in their midst is allowable because they're all right on it. We even have the ghastly Olympics, made by diversity for enrichment in mind, should be the logo I feel, not the one of us in the UK going through hoops. We now have news of 2 Muslim converts who have been arrested on suspicion of plotting an attack on the London Olympic canoeing venue, after police spotted them in a dinghy nearby. They were also previously firing off air rifles in Essex. Oh dear. Now I know that many Londoners will be leaving the capital during this farce, but do the police or army really think that if anything is done it will be done by 2 converts so openly? 9/11 had been planned for years, and if the papers are to be believed, the possible terrorists, that would be Muslims to you and I, are expected to deliver nothing short of a dirty bomb by aircraft during the Olympics, target the Olympic Stadium. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do not think even these monsters would be so stupid. It would turn the tide of indifference, even in the English, to that of moronic flower leaving and the odd desecration of a mosque. No, it is much easier and far less noticeable to colonise by stealth these days. They didn't want to colonise America, they wanted to humiliate it and destroy a world landmark. The Americans can bear arms and are more Christian in places than us, so far too dangerous for the average, cowardly terrorist. No, in England we are just a perfect storm waiting to happen. We have the combined forces of timing for attack, not the Olympics, the financial disasters, the EU, the Arab Spring and good old English laziness. Certain factions will rev themselves up for the footy, bless them, but tell them about what could happen to their children and this country and the rose tints make their appearance or the six-pack. I'm just hoping that we all wake up in time to stop all immigration from Muslim countries especially and start calling the shots as to whom and what we want or need in this country of ours before it is too late. And finally, asteroid enthusiasts will be happy with the news this week. A non-profit organisation has been set up in the United States to find them. In the next 5 years or so, a mission will be embarked upon to patrol deep space to find any deadly football-sized asteroids on the way to Earth. The Californian-based organisation is looking for asteroids, and one hopes they do not find any, or aliens, because we have enough of those already. You have been listening to The World at 8. As you know, we have the Reverend West joining us on Sundays now, and his sermons are fascinating. Don't forget to listen. I am Lynn Mozart, and we at Radio Britain wish all of you a very safe and happy weekend.
You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Friday the 29th of June. British student violated in Egypt. Techie in India responsible for the meltdown at NatWest. Euro News with Nick Griffin from the belly of the beast. Tensions rise between Japan and South Korea. Syrian government forces amass on Turkish border. Thought for the day, does Islam want integration or dominating the presidential election win of the Muslim Brotherhood when Natasha Smith lost her friends in the crowd? A horde of Muslim men stripped her naked and the physical and sexual assaults on the student began. It was only when she found a fellow university student and hid inside a medical tent that her ordeal stopped. She escaped dressed in a burqa, holding another Egyptian's hand so that the mob outside the nation. Finally, lost in space. UK News. A 21-year-old British student was sexually assaulted by Muslim men in Egypt's capital, Cairo. Natasha Smith, 21, who was doing a master's in journalism at Falmouth College, Cornwall, was in Tahrir Square in Cairo doing a report on women's rights for her university assignment. The mob would think they were married. The attack took place on Natasha during a rally against sexual abuse in the capital. The system meltdown at NatWest was apparently caused by a junior technician in India, it has been reported. The bank's British computer system is overseen in India, where the techie deleted vast swathes of information whilst performing a routine upgrade. NatWest